All right, good evening and welcome to another session of ShareIT. My name is Matteo, I'm a dev in ThoughtWorks Italy, and together with Mario, tonight we're going to be facilitating this talk by Martina Terlevic. As usual, before passing the mic to the speaker, we're just going to spend a couple of moments about what is ShareIT and what is the code of conduct for today. So ShareIT is an initiative organized by ThoughtWorks, which is a global consultancy firm. We have offices across all the world, and specifically in Italy, we are present in Milan. Even if many of us work and live outside the city of Milan itself, for instance, I'm currently based in Florence. In ThoughtWorks, we put a lot of emphasis about learning, but also teaching. That's why many of us have written and published several books throughout the years. And in ThoughtWorks Italy, we wanted to continue this tradition of teaching with ShareIT. So ShareIT is an initiative that's aimed to share the experience that we gather as an organization, specifically for Italy, but also outside Italy. And in fact, Martina is joining us from Germany. So our mission is to empower individuals and organizations, and the first objective that we gave us was to contribute to the community by sharing our experience, again, as individual, but also overall as an organization. So in a nutshell, ShareIT is a recurring event where we usually talk about tech, but in general about topics which are very dear to ThoughtWorks, like for instance, diversity and inclusions. Regarding the code of conduct, no big changes. In a nutshell, let's be excellent to each other. And specifically, we would like to give a couple of encouragements. The first one is to use the chat that you find in the webinar as much as possible. So all questions are valid. Just remember to be respectful of each other. And specifically, one other recommendation that we want to do is that each individual might be in a different step in the journey. So despite the topic, some of us might be very fluent with it. Other people might just be approaching it. So keep this in mind when you share your comments, opinion, or you interact with each other using the chat. The last recommendation we want to make is instead in terms of mechanics. So if you want to ask any question, you just need to write it inside the chat box that you find inside the webinar, and then either me or Mario will collect it and ask it to Martina. And finally, feel also free to share your opinion, your experience, whatever you want in the chat, and it doesn't need to be directed toward the speaker. So we think that it can also be a very enriching moment, not just learning from the words of Martina, but also interacting with each other. Again, of course, while being kind and respectful to each other. With that being said, I will shut up and pass the mic to Martina.
All righty, thank you so much for this introduction. I'm just going to take a second to share my screen first. There I go. And can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so hi, my name is Martina. I come from ThoughtWorks Germany. I was kindly invited here to share with you the presentation that I have already shared in Germany, but here it is one more time because it is a topic very near and dear to my heart. So I like talking about it. I like sharing awareness about it, raising awareness about it, and sharing my experiences, and also hearing about other people's experiences when it comes to treatment of women in gaming, whether it is in gaming as an industry, so video game development, video game engineering, or as a pop culture, part of our culture, so characters in video games, or people playing video games in particular. As you might see on the bottom, it says this has been made in 2021. So this is the same presentation I have done a year ago. However, I'm going to make a note when something has changed or there has been further development. So feel free to ask questions if anything is unclear, if you would like to add your comments to it, or just share your own experiences, because this is not only a topic that is interesting for people that are part of the gaming industry, but also for people that know a family member who is a part of the gaming industry. You might have, I don't know, nieces and nephews, brothers and sisters who are there. So you might also, it might also be valuable for you to understand what the industry is about. So with that being said, let's start with women in gaming. So the first thing that I want to clarify is this research that has been conducted in 2017 by the Quantic Foundry has been done on male and female genders. However, there has never been definition of what a gamer actually is. So they have said in their research that a gamer is a person that is playing any sort of video game. So that can even be like Candy Crush on your phone or Wordle or anything that is popular at the time. As long as you play that on a semi-regular basis, you are considered a gamer. So they have done this research and have found out that on average, females prefer to play video games that have some sort of collecting aspect to it. So any sort of thing that has a tendency to complete tasks and in some sort of way do online chores, while the male preferences are more competitive games and anything that can express their value in a way. So, and these are just the genres that you see here are the genres with the highest male to female discrepancy. So there are also some genres where it's mostly like equal. Yeah, so what happens when females decide to join in on the games that are predominantly a boys' club, so to say? Well, a lot of fun things, but generally not for the girls, unfortunately, because this has been a social experiment done in the Ohio University. Well, at this point, that has been 10 years ago. And the experiment was very simple. The researcher started playing a competitive video game online as himself, normally went into the competitive matches, went into the voice chat with other players, and has tried to play the game normally. He has not been, a very proficient video game player, so it was like a very mediocre level of gameplay, so nothing professional, like sportsman, like. And he has recorded all of his interactions with other people and tried to make more or less, try to see a pattern in it. Then when he was done with this part of the experiment, he used a voice changer and created an account that has more feminine approach. So he was trying to portray himself as a female on the internet and see how he's gonna get treated in the same games with the same level of skill by other people in the voice chat, and the result was extremely disappointing. He has noticed that on average, he's getting 3 times more insults, derogatory terms, or people just trying to lose the game on purpose because they found out they have a female in their team, so they say they're gonna lose by default, so they just stop playing. So it was just a very, very bad experience and very devastating results to see that in 2012, there has been such a big difference between a male and a female playing the same video game with same skill set. So the most common forms of the harassment via voice chat, unfortunately, sexist jokes, when people just say, oh, it's just a joke. It's not just a joke. If you keep repeating it, a child might hear it, might think it's funny, so they're gonna keep repeating it, and it just brings in more and more hate instead of trying to fight the problem. Of course, we have the very popular insults about return to the kitchen, let your boyfriend play for you, and stuff like that. And I gotta say, from my personal experience, these are the more gentle insults. I actually, when I first was writing this presentation, decided to go into a game of Overwatch just to try to find out how long does it take until I get the first insult in voice chat. And it was literally the first game. I got a lot of very, very vulgar insults. from someone that I like. By the voice, I would say it's probably like a 12, 13-year-old child. So it was very, very shocking to hear such words being spoken by someone so young, but also just hearing them in general. As I am also a live streamer in my free time, not only do I get treatment like that in video games themselves, but I do get it from the viewers. Thankfully, not as much recently, but that is mostly because I tend to have my friends who are males in the chat with me, so I have some sort of shield. And also generally I'm getting a little bit more views than when I, of course, first started. But when I first started and I would have maybe 1 or 2 people at a time, I would quite often get questions like, can you show us your cleavage or something like that? Or just offers to give a donation if I show, you know, parts of my body, which is just something that I don't want to hear personally. And of course, depending on how I dressed that day, I would either get, you know, the comments and insults would range between "you are a slut" or "you look like a man." So it really at some point seemed like there is no winning there. So, and yeah, as I wrote there, the research also showed that quite often the initiators of such insults, or even just a conversation about those insults, seem to be preteens or young teens, because they seem that they think that by conducting themselves in such a way are going to be treated more favorably by their peers, because then they're more cool, more edgy, more funny. Yeah. And now let's take a look at how it looks in the video games themselves. So unfortunately, for a long, long time, it seemed that there are just that the female characters have been put into certain categories or certain boxes. And so we're going to take a look at the classical tropes that we see in the video games. The first thing is over-sexualization. These, of course, come from the games that used to be extremely popular, like Soul Calibur, or in this case, even GTA, Grand Theft Auto, which is a very popular game series. But it seems that they are using female body in such a way that it is part of their marketing technique as well. So it's like, of course, we're gonna gather more people, or, well, since it's mostly targeted toward the male player base, we are going to get more males into our gaming community if we show over-sexualized characters. Or on the other end of the spectrum, if we show female characters that are absolutely useless. So one of the most popular damsels in distress, as they are called, Peach from Super Mario. We all know the story of Super Mario. Peach gets constantly kidnapped and Mario needs to save her, and that is just a story that is being repeated over and over again. They did, however, give her a game at some point. I think it was called Super Peach or something like that, where she had the power of PMS, which was extremely insulting, but hey, at least she got a game, right? And the second character that is also quite popular, Ashley from Resident Evil 4, still being discussed as one of the most useless characters in video game history, because the quest line surrounding her is mostly about you trying to defend her from all the zombies and she not being able to do absolutely anything. And it's, yeah, it is a recurring theme that we have seen over the years when it comes to video games. Now, one of the more popular characters in the video game culture is Lara Croft. I think that everybody that has heard of video games knows about Tomb Raider. There was also a popular movie with Angelina Jolie in the main role. Afterwards, there was also a remaster, remake, not sure how you call it, when they redo the same movie only with different people. But she has started as a very heavily sexualized character to, you know, attract more male player base. However, throughout the years, they have developed the character, and now she's more of this young woman that is trying to, fight for her family, fight for her friends, discover ancient ruins, and there is less focus on her body and more focus on the actual story around her. So you can see here, I don't know if you can see my mouse. No, you can't. But in the bottom middle, that is how the character currently looks like. So properly covered, but still, functional clothing. So are there some damsels that are done correctly or more acceptably? And yes, of course there is. Of course, as the culture has progressed over the years, so have the opinions of the game developers, so have the industry itself has developed, of course. So for example, on the right side, you have Zelda from The Legend of Zelda. She also started like a damsel in distress, always being kidnapped, always needing help from the main protagonist. However, in the more recent games, she's taking a more active role, participating in the game itself, sometimes even as a playable character. For example, in the Hyrule Warriors, you can play as her. And now she's like slowly coming out of the damsel role and being more of a regular protagonist type of character. And of course, Samus Aran from Metroid. For a long time, people did not know that that is actually a female character. Yeah, so at first they were trying again to over-sexualize her by giving her a very tight jumpsuit that is very exposing of her attributes. However, now more and more we're seeing her presented in the full armor, while still knowing that she's a female character, or in a more appropriate battle suit. So since we have talked about video games themselves, let's talk a little bit about the video game industry, so game development. And the first and probably the most popular or most well-known controversy, or I would even call it a movement, is called Gamergate. That was a movement, or yeah, I'm gonna call it a movement, in around 2014, where a group of right-wing extremists, so to say, have done targeted harassment towards the female population in the video game industry, whether it is the developers themselves. For example, Zoe Quinn was the most prominently targeted female developer. Also, there was a massive increase in harassment in like the voice chats, generally chats with female gamers in them. And the problem was it wasn't really organized, to be honest. It was mostly like they were communicating through the anonymous boards like Reddit or 4chan, etc. However, there was no leader. It was just, somebody started harassing one person, and then it's just like kind of like it was an avalanche that started from it. They didn't really have any like also official motto, except that they said that they wanted to bring video games back to its roots, or like back to its gamer community, which was an absolutely ridiculous statement. Like, what is the gamer community if you're just targeting part of the gamer community and trying to alienate them? I have read one, well, not really funny fact, but it seems that the entire situation actually started with the ex-boyfriend of Zoe Quinn, who started harassing her over those boards and started gathering like-minded people. Their main targets were women. However, there was also they were also targeting at some point people of other genders as well, and also people that were defending them. They would just be put under the label of social justice warriors and just shunned as people that are gonna, defend any woman for the chance of, becoming their boyfriends or something like that. In any case, it was a very, very big deal, and it was a very disgusting deal. The problem was that none of the social medias have decided to do anything about it. So people were completely free to spread hate without any sort of consequence, which is one of the problems of, anonymity on the internet. You can say whatever you want, and most often than not, you're going to get away with it because people cannot find you, cannot figure out who you are. At some point, Twitter even said that they cannot really do anything because they're not really liable for what other people say on their platform. They're the ones offering the platform, but they're not, they cannot dictate what people can or cannot say. So, well, the developers took the matter in their own hands. So Randy Harper created a good game auto blocker. So they spread that little plugin, which allowed people to block any account that had hashtag Gamergate in their profile or was talking about hashtag Gamergate. Because it was such a big movement, people started identifying as part of the Gamergate. So it was a big thing at the time. Thankfully, it died out about a year after, or a year and a half after. And then we slid into the hashtag #MeToo. So this is a statement made by the International Game Development Association, which is an association that is primarily trying to help indie developers. So developers that don't have a big backing from big corporations, they're trying to do video games on their own, like mostly because they have a passion for it rather than, making a quick buck. And they're also trying to, protect those developers and protect the community. So their statement was, the prevalence of sexual harassment and assault in our community is deeply disturbing and demands action from every game developer to ensure the safety and support of all our colleagues and community members. We all must do a better job of welcoming and protecting all game developers so that our community, craft, and industry can thrive. All developers play a part in supporting an industry where we can create wonderful things. We cannot succeed as individuals, artists, or companies if our industry tolerates harassment. We encourage game developers around the world to join the IGDA in adopting a zero-tolerance policy towards harassment and violence, in committing to swift and fair response and resolution to any complaints, in protecting the safety of anyone who has been the victim of harassment, and in supporting a diverse and inclusive workspace and community. So, very nice statement in 2017 when hashtag #MeToo was very prevalent. Everybody was talking about it. However, did that actually help? Well, yes and no. People started speaking out more and more about their workplace situations. However, not as much has come to light as it did during the panorama. I'm not sure if we can say the P word, if we're gonna get blocked for it or whatever, but the recent virus spread, when there was a particular situation with Activision Blizzard, about people starting to come out more and more about very discriminatory treatment of people of color, people of different genders, etc. And it kind of escalated from there. Other people started coming out from other bigger companies. On this page, on the slide, you can see some of the bigger things that came to light during #MeToo in particular. However, well, in between hashtag #MeToo and the situation that happened 2 years ago with Activision Blizzard, nothing much has been done, because in that time, unfortunately, one of the female developers from Activision Blizzard took her own life due to harassment in the workspace. You can find some information online. I don't want to dwell too much about it, but it was a very serious case of harassment that was known by the higher ups, but nothing has been done due to the fact that the perpetrator was a high-ranking member of the board, and it escalated so badly that the person decided that they have no other choice but to do the final act. Unfortunately, even after that, it still took a lot of time until people in Activision Blizzard started speaking up about this issue. Not until, as I said, start of the virus spread a few years ago, when people started coming out and saying that they have seen, or it is part of the culture in those companies. So like we're talking about big video game companies. It is part of their culture to harass people around them, whether it is holding meetings in hot tubs, as Atari used to be doing, or just having drinks during lunchtime and then drunkenly going around the office and grabbing their female employees, female coworkers in inappropriate places. That was part of their culture. So it started changing, thankfully, because people started coming out. And we're here talking about big companies like Activision Blizzard, Riot that made League of Legends, Rockstar, who is in charge of GTA, the Grand Theft Auto series. So a lot of big companies. During this time, one of the bigger names also, Ubisoft, that is in charge of the big franchise called Assassin's Creed, was working on a game called Assassin's Creed Origin, which was set in place in, I think it was Greece. And during the entire development, it was meant for the main character to be female. However, the CEO actually stepped in and said a very famous sentence that is going to be remembered for the next few years in the video game industry, and that is, women don't sell games. Which is, I mean, blatantly not true. We discussed earlier about Lara Croft, which is one of the most known video game characters of all time. So, okay. But that comment from, you know, an executive at Ubisoft was so strong that they decided to make the protagonist like you could choose whether your protagonist is female or male. So you get an option. And yeah, so during Me Too, since we didn't really get much support from, you know, the social media platforms, there was a lot of attempts to take the matter into our own hands. So for example, the streaming community on Twitch was trying to organize Blackout Wednesdays, which would not be just one Wednesday, but a couple of them, and that would basically mean nobody would be streaming on that day. Since Amazon at that point already acquired Twitch, that was a protest directly against Amazon to do something about it, to make sure that the creators of different genders are protected on the platform. Well, that didn't really go as planned, because as you know, on a highly competitive platform like Twitch, if a lot of people, if 90% of the people say they're not going to be streaming, there is the 10% they're going to think like, oh, this is an opportunity for me to be more visible, so I'm going to stream on that day. So unfortunately, not much has come out of this. Yeah, so that then begs the question of what do we do? One of the reasons why I have also decided to make a presentation like this was I have talked to a couple of coworkers when I had the idea of doing this, and they said, well, we're not part of the video game industry, we don't play video games, but our sons do. And they said that they have heard, you know, some suspicious things coming out of their mouths while they have headphones on and stuff like that, but they never really, you know, paid attention to it. You know, like boys will be boys, they're playing a competitive video game, so they get a little bit angry. The thing is that they never really think who is on the other side of that conversation. So when I spoke to them and I said, like, yeah, probably on the other side, you know, is a person that is receiving those insults. Like, would you talk to people on the street like that? Would you talk to your friends like that? So why do we feel that we can talk to other people like that? So it's not even just the story about, you know, male versus female. It's generally the power of anonymity in video games, as well, the power of anonymity when we talk to other people, because we tell them, you know, things that we find edgy, funny, and, you know, other people are gonna think we're so cool that we said that sentence, but you're saying it to someone. So yeah. But yeah, my question for people that are watching maybe would be, do you have any sort of experience like that? Doesn't matter if it was directed to you. Maybe you know of your friends who are of people of different genders, people of different colors who have been targeted, just try to actively protect them, because of course it is already enough, well, it should be already enough that you're not the one doing it, but the internet is very big, the internet is very loud. So when you can, try stepping in, try saying like, hey, that's not okay. Just think what you're talking about, think about the person that is on the other side. So yeah, thank you for giving me the time and the platform to talk about this. Of course, since last year, there has been a lot of positive things coming out of the video game industry, movements in the positive direction for protecting especially developers that are of different genders. Of course, not nearly enough, and we are not even close to the equality that we're striving for, but at least we're going in the appropriate direction. So thank you. Do we have any questions?
Yes, Martina. Let's say one question for sure, and also one comment. They are both from Exit Dust. So the first one, and it is the question, it says, what are your views between online bullying and misogynistic remarks and real-life bullying kids experience during their school years? Because even though the remarks are different, the idea is the same.
I definitely agree. But I also think that, well, let's call it bullying online. Bullying online, I think it's a little bit more widespread because of the issue that I commented earlier, and that is the anonymity. When you're bullying in school, for example, you have a face behind those words. So you are John Johnson that is being very rude to your peers. But when you're on the internet, you are user123, and that can be anyone behind the username. And that gives you the power to say even things that you would never dare say in real life. Of course, that's, you know, it's something that I don't think it's ever going to be uprooted, that it's not something that can ever be completely eliminated, but at least we can do our part and be an active participant in moving things towards the better.
Thanks, Martina. The other, more than a question, is a comment. So it goes like, Cassandra from AC. Odyssey was the best character I ever played as in any AC game. Fight me.
Yeah, that's a very gamer comment, but yeah, so Cassandra was the video game character that I talked about. It was basically the person that was that the Ubisoft CEO said like that character is not going to sell a video game. Not because of the design of the character, but because it was a female character.
Thanks, Martina. There is another one from Fabiana, and it says, first of all, thank you for the presentation. Do you know if there will be any data about AC choice of characters played? How many players choose F instead, I guess, female instead of male? It would be really nice to know as support for upcoming case. Yeah,
I wish they have put any sort of data like that. To my knowledge, they haven't yet. Because at that point, Ubisoft was struggling more in their internal affairs when it comes to discrimination. They were trying to like clean from the inside. So they have not really focused on the game itself, but I would really want to see that data. And I definitely agree that it would help the upcoming games. And also it is a little bit weird because a lot of video games now where you can choose your own protagonist give you the choice of genders. So it was a very weird choice why they decided to just block you as a male protagonist for all these years, and then say in the like 10 years after they started with Assassin's Creed series of no, female is not going to sell the games, when so many other games have done that. So it really begs the question if that was an actual choice with data behind it, or if it was just a misogynistic remark. But yeah, thank you. That was a very good question. I wish we could see some data around that as well. This actually reminds me of a recent development with Activision Blizzard, because they have also been doing some internal cleaning, of course, after all of the allegations came out, all the proof coming out, state of California suing them. So that was actually a big oof. The state itself was like, no, this is way too bad. Like, you need to do something about it. So they had one team of developers and executives that on a conference booked a room that they filled with photographs of Bill Cosby, and they called it the Cosby Room. And at first, people thought, okay, maybe they're like fan of, the show of Bill Cosby or something like that. But the comments were that they genuinely accepted and were endorsing all of the allegations against Bill Cosby. And one of the men inside that group was a developer that later would be immortalized in Overwatch as the character Jesse McCree. So that was the character that got the name of that developer. However, Blizzard came out after this all came out and decided to rename the character. So even though, that was not part of the cleanup of the company itself, at least they said like, okay, we're not going to immortalize a person that had such allegations against them. So now the character is called Cassidy. And also, when it comes to Activision Blizzard itself, at some point on the higher ranks, they have promoted a woman that gave out a statement that all of those allegations against Activision Blizzard were false, and that there is no such thing in the company. I'm of course paraphrasing. And later it was found out, still as an allegation, that she never actually wrote that. The male executives wrote that and said and signed her name on it and gave her money to stay silent. So again, this is just an allegation. Nothing has been proven yet. The investigation is constantly ongoing, but Activision Blizzard has recently been bought out because their stock just plummeted after all of these allegations, as it should. But also the state of California, after suing the company, is constantly reviewing the situation in the company itself. Of course, a lot of others need to follow the same example, but as I said, we are at least moving somewhere.
I also had a question, if I can. Okay, maybe there is one. Sorry, there is one from the community, so maybe let's go with that. Okay. So while gaming growing up, I tried keeping a generic name, never turning my mic on or in any way suggesting that I am a female. How do you personally keep the negativity away?
That is a very good question. And yeah, I keep the negativity away exactly in the same way. So not joining voice chats. Literally, when I was playing Overwatch as a competitive player, I would mute the voice chat. I would mute the normal text chat. I would just try to be in my own bubble without communicating with people, which of course was not really good because it's a cooperative competitive game. So you kind of need to communicate with your team members. But at some point I just decided like, no, I had enough. I started speaking in voice chat. And unfortunately, the solution for the harassment was developing a thicker skin. And it's not really a solution. It is just something that unfortunately comes as a symptom of all of that. How to avoid the negativity itself, I usually would keep a friend with me. So a male friend, and at least I'm not alone, So at least I have someone getting angry with me. So it makes it a little bit better. But unfortunately, I don't have advice there.
If I can, I want to also follow up with a question I had. In your experience, are there, let's say, games that from a game design point of view are trying, let's say, to help in this area? Maybe, building into the game ways that might be creative or, with the technology of the game to help, with this type of problem?
So in a sense, like just promoting being more tolerant, being more politically correct.
That's one I was thinking also, like just an idea, right? We just spoke about how you can keep negativity. So maybe some games are just giving a way to change your voice into the game, right? So that you are in some way, avoiding this type of issues. I don't know, just Yeah.
I cannot really think of the games themselves, but there is one application, I think, that is free called Voice Modulator. So like, of course, you can try to mask your voice so people don't recognize you're female, but yeah, but when it comes to just promoting the political correctness and just being a better person, the indie scene of the game development industry is actually doing that quite heavily. The bad thing is that the AAA community, so the people with the big money behind them, are not, at least not yet. So yeah, that's why, if I may give an advice, if you can, if you enjoy video games, try supporting the indie teams, give money where you know it's being spent on something that is actually worthwhile.
I'm going to read out one advice from Exit Dust. So it goes like, I have some advice. The boys that harass women on voice chat are still very insecure. Answers like, quoting, so now I understand why you don't give a freak.
Girlfriend.
Yes. Sorry, I misinterpreted. Attacking their insecurity and so on would work, but it won't solve the underlying problem that boys will harass girls.
Yeah,
so.
And generally it's not even just girls, as I said, just people of other gender as well. For example, there is quite a lot of comments, since I don't really have a high voice for a woman. I quite often get asked, like, are you a little boy or a girl, you know? And it's just, you know, it might not seem like harassment, but it's a little bit like, why does it matter? Like, I'm playing the game with you. Like, does it matter if I'm a boy or a girl, or if I identify as a unicorn? It doesn't really matter what I am. So that's like, you know, a form of like a micro harassment in a way. But yeah, generally what I found is that, yeah, you can always tackle them head on, right? You can answer to their provocation with something like that, but generally it's never going to end well for you, because they're stupid. Like, I'm sorry, there is no nicer way to say it. They're stupid and they're gonna double down on it. So at some point it's just, we have a saying in Croatia that goes, the smarter one is going to let go first. So I think in this situation, it's just, you know, just try to ignore it as much as you can, unfortunately.
Martina, one question from my side instead, in case there are no other questions. Okay, my question would be, are you aware of any good example? Good in the sense that either the community is a healthy, or at least there is a very positive outlook, like the majority of gamers are stepping up and they're setting an example.
I think I would actually have to give an example of Discord. As you know, Discord is a chat application mostly used by the gaming communities. Nowadays, even more, is starting to spread out a little bit more. So even some companies use it as a platform for their work as well. However, they have implemented a lot of security measures for hate raids, for harassments, etc. So they are trying to do their best in helping their community members resolve problems or just stop them before they even occur. So they are doing a much different approach than Twitter, who said like, oh, we are not guilty for what people write. Discord was like, well, we're not guilty for what people write, but at least we can stop it. So they are trying. Yeah. Also, Reddit has a pretty good moderation team. They are trying to also tackle it as much as possible, but as I said, there are always things that are gonna slip through the cracks. Of course, some sort of automated moderation is only it can only go so far, right? There is always going to be a way that the smart people are gonna flip the sentence so that it doesn't get detected or something like that. So, but I would say at least Discord is trying to tackle it as a positive example.
Thank you.
All righty.
I would also do another question, sorry, if I can. Do you have time? Sorry. Let's say, are you seeing in new generation, like younger people that are approaching the game industry and, you know, playing games, let's let's say, progress on this, right? Improving in this, maybe because they are also more exposed to this topic. We talk more about it. I mean, is there like any positive, coming from the new generation, maybe this?
So one positive thing is that it's more and more okay for girls to be playing video games as well, right? We are moving far away from the stereotype of video games are for boys and it's not something that girls do. Even the recent research has shown that it's closing into 50-50% on the gender scale. Well, on the binary gender scale, but yeah. Even for example, I've read that France is giving support to video game companies that are developing video games targeted towards girls, which is a quite nice initiative. The problem that I see that is still not being tackled properly is education of boys in this case, because I still see, even though it's we are increasing awareness of the problem and there is more girls joining in the community, I still see that the boys that are coming into the community are following the same pattern of the older generation and trying to follow their example because they're the cool ones. So unfortunately, I think that we still have a long way to go, but I do see it as something that is going to change with time. As I said, there is now a lot of girls joining in the community, so hopefully slowly.
Thanks.
There is another question. Well, I'm going to read it out, but I think it's not a question. So still Vamika says, not a question, but an example of how I've been supported in the past. I had a group of guys who welcomed me to join them. We played in the same lobby as a team and sitting across each other. I could avoid communicating while teaming up with strangers and at the same time enjoying the game. I have been fortunate and I can't thank them enough.
Absolutely. The support of your friends, your peers, of like-minded people is very, very helpful. I would say it's very necessary for us because that is our most reliable shield right now. Again, it's still said that we need to have a shield, but we are gonna get there eventually. I have faith that we will. Definitely in the last 10 years, I can see big difference from when I was a young girl playing video games and now that I am a not so young girl playing video games.
All right, folks, I think there are no other questions. So maybe we can start closing it here. Again, thank you very much, Martina, for hosting today's session. And maybe we can just conclude it with just one last slide, which is just mentioning that we're going to send out a feedback form request so that we can improve the organization, the communication of the next event, so we improve anytime. And again, Martina, thank you very much again, and I wish you and everybody a nice evening, and yeah, see you next time.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.